There's a truism in business that there are never enough resources to deliver everything you want to do. And it often feels like there's a never-ending stream of people wanting more resources or money for this or that. And the connection between those resource requests and your goals seems unclear at best. Now, the executives I talk to usually just want to deliver business value. And a good prioritization process ensures you get more of the right stuff done. So if you think about prioritization for a moment, you'll realize that there's a big fat assumption at the heart of the process. I mean, we want to deploy resources and investments in a way that supports our strategy, but whose strategy are we implementing? I mean, what's more important for one team or one business unit may not be important for another. So how do you compare the merits of these different requests for resources? How do you allocate those resources in a way that supports the overall goals of the business? Now, that's where transparent choice and the AHP methodology comes in. Now, my eyes tend to glaze over when people start talking about methodologies. But all you really need to know at this stage is that AHP gives you a structured way to talk about your business goals and to get the leadership team aligned. Now, without that step, which most teams find really valuable, by the way, in its own right, it's impossible to optimize the deployment of resources. It's impossible. At the end of the day, there are three big jobs that an executive has to do. That's it. Just three jobs. You need to define and communicate the strategic direction, allocate resources, and then just ensure good governance, make sure everything's working. Now, of course, in practice, that translates into 1,001 tasks and decisions, but they boil down to these three core responsibilities. Right? Define and communicate strategic direction, allocate resources, and ensure good governance. Now, transparent choice helps improve the clarity of your strategy, ensuring that your leadership team's pointing in the same direction and giving you a crystal clear way to communicate that strategy to your team. It then gives you a powerful framework to allocate resources and projects that support the strategy. Now, according to the Project Management Institute, 50% of projects are not properly resourced. In your world, you will certainly have people coming to you to complain that their project needs more resources or more money. But what about all those projects that are over-resourced? Now, funnily enough, nobody ever complains about having too many resources, but those resources could be better deployed. Now, having a clear way to clarify, to communicate and quantify your strategy helps you identify the projects that really need the focus, enabling you to reallocate resources to improve the return to the business. It's the classic holy grail of delivering more value from less resource. Now, given that defining and communicating strategy and allocating resources are two out of the big three jobs for any executive, this really seems like a no-brainer. Now, there's a kind of folklore that's grown up around how to prioritize projects. Very little of it is based on real evidence. In fact, the evidence is that few of the methods traditionally used for prioritization are really suitable. Now, research by the Project Management Institute tells us that a typical portfolio, 1 in 5 projects, are not really aligned with the business. Now, I've yet to meet an executive who clearly sees this 20% waste in their own portfolio, right? They're hidden by well-intentioned managers presenting a business case that seems compelling, right? But this number is real. I mean, I recently saw an energy company where 30% of the projects simply didn't support strategy at all. And a government department where 20% of the resources were being chewed up by just a few pet projects. Now, it's important to understand that this is not a failure in leadership or in decision making, right? This is a failure of methodology. In the case of the government department, they took the same data to the same people, but used our software to implement the AHP methodology, and boom, right? The sponsor of those pet projects killed his own projects. No fuss, no politics, just strategic clarity that enables decision makers to do just that, to make decisions. It's the methodology that makes the difference. Absolutely. I mean, a few minutes ago, I mentioned an energy company and a government department, both of which had significantly misaligned projects. And we got them fixed quickly. I mean, in the case of the government department, I think the timeline was something like 3.5 weeks from the first discussion to all done. Now, there's a lot of research in the area of prioritization. It turns out it's quite a difficult problem, and so researchers in the area of operational research and so forth spend quite a lot of time thinking about prioritization and doing research. And paper after paper shows how AHP is effective, how it boosts alignment, how it increases transparency and communication, how it boosts buy-in and so forth. Now, this is not something we just made up, right? And it's not something you're going to find in a typical PPM tool either. I mean, some of them have nice charts and so forth, but it's the AHP methodology that makes the difference. So the lesson here is that just because something says project prioritization, just because your current process is entitled project prioritization, it doesn't mean it's effective, or it doesn't mean it couldn't be more effective. So look for AHP. Use AHP. That's where the value add lies. It's really simple. Give it a try. And the great thing about implementing transparent choice is that it's pretty quick. And you'll need to spend an hour or two in a structured workshop to define your strategic goals and so forth. But the payoff of doing that, whether you move forward with transparent choice software or not, is that your leadership team will have a much better sense, a much more aligned picture of your overall strategy. I mean, that's your worst case outcome of trying it, right? So why not reach out to me personally, or ask your PMO leader to reach out to my team, and let's give it a go. Right? It's a small investment, it's very low risk, with a potentially huge payoff of getting much more value from the same resources. Right? What's not to like there? So reach out and let's give it a go.